What up, ladies and gentlemen? Here with another awesome interview with a YouTube icon, with a journalism icon. The New York Times said a bunch of really sappy stuff about him, but we're going to ignore that. We are here with the one and only Mr. Andrew Callaghan of Channel 5 News, of All Gas, No Breaks, of Dear Kelly, of literally every single major incredible piece of journalism on YouTube.
Wow.
How are you doing?
Thank you for the high praise. I'm doing great,
Of
bro. Just
course.
chilling. This movie's been out for 10 days, so I'm kind of coming to the high point of the marketing. About to go to the border, about to go to Jamaica. Got a lot of shit going on, man. Thanks for having me.
That's awesome. Didn't you hit 30,000 rentals?
Yeah, we did hit 30,000 rentals a couple days ago in the first 10 days, which is pretty tight. They tell you
Incredible.
that you have to go to a streaming service if you want to get viewership, but it turns out if you do it yourself, just as good.
Exactly. And it's independent, which is absolutely like top notch.
Yeah, man.
One of the major questions I had about the film, which is first of all, awesome, is why Kelly? What was so unique about this character that you landed on him and made a whole entire film about him?
Well, I think that prior to meeting him, I had talked to probably thousands of people with the same talking points, or as far as politics goes. But I felt like in kind of capturing the chaos of the January 6th lead up for the HBO project, I got a lot of kind of automated typical responses, but I wasn't able to really cut deep beyond the surface level and figure out what economic and social factors caused a lot of these people to become so susceptible to the political mobilization in the first place. I think there's a lot of conversation about like what media they consume to get, down the rabbit hole or whatever, but very little is it talked about what they were like before and what kind of primed them for the radicalization.
Yeah, that was super interesting, and finding someone, it is really terrible, honestly, finding someone who's been so almost watered down and so hurt by so many things and all kind of leading up to this, like you said, radicalization. It really
Yeah.
is terrible. I wonder though, do you think this is happening on like, I hate to say it, like what the Republicans would call like the far left?
Yeah. Well, it kind of depends because yes, there is radicalization happening on the left, but I don't think it happens the same way. So in the movie, I theorize that conservative radicalization happens because of core need collapse. So you have a great life, you're secure, you're stable, you feel loved. That kind of goes away, and the American dream sort of vanishes in front of your eyes, and you become very conservative. However, I think that on the left or on the liberal side, it's actually an oversaturation of core needs that creates the radicalization. So, like, you know, a lot of liberals are so consumed by guilt because they've had really nice lives, and that is a lot of the times what makes them more radical and overcompensate for that either white guilt or class guilt and start doing, crazy leftist lunatic shit.
I love how you put that. It really is perfect. And I totally, totally agree.
Definitely.
Especially seeing that in like a sort of middle class, but definitely people that are like rich and people that are less, like seeing that kind of weird imbalance of politics and, like you said, oversaturation and overcompensating and all kind
Yeah.
of clashing with each other.
Yeah, because there's very few like poor radical leftists. Most of them come from the middle and upper classes, whereas most of the radical conservatives grew up with pretty rough and tumble environments, or at least they had good lives, and those lives became horrendous as a result of like what happened to Kelly, eviction or foreclosure.
Exactly. And then also like the news and kind of these forum posts kind of getting crazier and crazier. Like even
Mhm.
on Reddit, which is like very accessible by I would say everyone, you can find some crazy shit on there with
Yeah,
the search of a button.
yeah,
So
definitely.
it, and then that brings actually a really interesting point, right? Would you support censorship of these ideas that are fundamentally wrong, as in like wrong facts and just sending people down a rabbit hole that could lead them to, this crazy radicalization? Or would you say that, censorship is all bad no matter what?
I would say it's, pretty much all bad no matter what, unless you're taking down like, KKK recruitment websites. That's like a whole different thing. But yeah, generally, I think that censorship has been ineffective. I think back during the days of the free internet, when I was young, probably right around the time you were born, maybe, when I was like
Back in
12
my
years
day.
old. When I was 12 years old, 13, like the internet was raw. You could post what you wanted. There wasn't as much censorship. And you can see that the big censorship wave that started during COVID in 2020 has obviously backfired, and I think we're paying for that mistake right now with Trump being in office.
Exactly, exactly. And with this new film, right? Or I guess you would say new because you did go on tour for it, right? Back
Yeah,
in
yeah.
the summer.
Mhm.
and I think that went fantastic. You came by my town of Atlanta, which is awesome to see.
Oh shit, awesome, man.
Um, I was wondering, would you ever do that again? Like, do you think the reception was overall positive?
Yeah, I think I like. I mean, touring is super exhausting, especially when you're showing the same movie every time and doing a moderated Q&A for 30 minutes after every time. But I would probably do it again. I like touring every other year and releasing a movie every other year. Like people have asked me, do you have any feature films on the horizon? And I'm like, nah, this is pretty much it for the foreseeable future. I'm sure I will make a movie again at some point down the line, but I prefer covering, news stories in real time and being in the field, to be honest with you.
I think I totally agree, and especially where that is like home. That's where a lot of the most popular videos are, and a lot of the videos that get the most attention and have the most impact on impressionable young minds, such as myself.
Right,
Like that's how we
exactly.
find you.
You're going to consume something, more often on YouTube than you would behind a paywall.
Exactly.
You're definitely not going to consume something like on PBS or at 60 Minutes, you know? And so it sucks because on one hand, it's good that traditional media is fading away, but unfortunately, what's being replaced by it is not necessarily any better than traditional media. You know what I mean? Like most people are getting their information from like podcasters and clickbait YouTubers. And so that's kind of becoming the next issue is yeah, of course CNN and Fox News lies and they're slanted, but how is this new swamp of influencers any better than that?
Exactly. Well, honestly, with the influencers, it's super interesting because I've noticed that it's almost like a God complex where
Mhm.
people will like, you're perfect, you're talking to someone with a microphone, so you must be important. And then you see these Tristan's trait, I hate to say it, but like the Sigma kind of
Yeah.
fallout, which then, like you said, puts a massive impression on young minds. And then you have a whole generation that's all screwed up thinking that they're the next alpha male by eating eggs and steak every single day for breakfast.
Yeah, no, that's crazy, man. The alpha male stuff is just funny as hell. As somebody like when I was growing up, there was no like alpha influencers, but I think that technically the most beta thing to do is to call yourself alpha. If you ever refer to
Exactly.
yourself as alpha, you can't be alpha because that would go against the whole purpose.
Maybe that can be your next film, like a rule book for how to be alpha by Andrew
How to
Callaghan.
be alpha. It'll be a 30-second movie. It'd be like just be there for your family and don't call yourself alpha. That's all you gotta do.
Hell yeah. I can see some very popular merch designs with that right there. I see it now.
I tried to
Um,
go to an event called AlphaCon in Salt Lake City like 3.5 years ago, but they kicked me out after my crew had already arrived because they literally they said we looked into your content and you guys have beta vibes, and I was like, oh man,
of course it's Salt Lake City too. I wouldn't see
of
that
all
happening anywhere
places.
else.
Goddamn Mormons, man.
Yeah, which is honestly like bringing in kind of the music aspect. It's super funny because Salt Lake City, I don't know if you noticed, they have Kilby Blockfest, which is
Mm,
ironically enough the most like liberal and fun and incredible lineup out there. Consistently every year, they
yeah,
bring the best bands and have like a complete Democrat, like
yeah,
Mormon anti-Mormon fest right in
yeah.
the
Well, that's
center.
what's interesting is like there's a lot of bars in downtown Salt Lake City where they have like teenage and young 20s binge drinkers that are coming from the church, the Mormon church. And it's kind of like Amish people when they get free for Rumspringa. They drink so much in Salt Lake City, and they're all like, they just drink and talk shit about the church. Like that's kind of the vibe at the dive bars there.
Wow,
Yeah,
I
it's
would
pretty
love to
funny.
spend a day in there.
Yeah, you
That
should
sounds
go, man.
incredible. Yeah, I. This is like kind of off topic, but
Huh?
I think I was coming back from Yellowstone, like my first time really up there, and we decided to fly back on like a really cheap flight because it was like too tiring and expensive to drive back. And we like flew over Salt Lake City, and I wanted to leave so badly and go see the sights. And my mom
Yeah.
was like, not really. So all I got to see was a really old lady preach about Mormonism at a Cracker Barrel.
Oh, okay. Well, that kind of gives you a good glimpse into what Salt Lake City is like. I think from that point, you can build a solid foundation, especially once you turn 18. You can do whatever you want. Your mom can't stop you.
Exactly.
That's the best part about
That
being a teen.
it's kind of funny. It's a big talking point on this podcast, but
Yeah.
yeah, it's exciting. And the music part, right? Bringing that into your journalism, I think a big fan favorite is the rappers. And
Yeah.
these like these people you will never almost can't find on your own. And then
Mhm.
you putting them in the spotlight and then having that 15 seconds of, incredible freestyle or maybe not so good freestyle. Like, how did that first start and become tradition? And how do you plan on continuing that?
Well, it started off because I'm just an actual fan of rap music, and like I grew up. I've been listening to rap like my whole life since I was a little kid. It's like that's really the only genre of music that I listen to, and so it just came as a result of natural interest. And then I realized that most of my fans, Channel 5 fans, aren't necessarily like rap fans. So when I make videos on rappers, they're like utterly fascinated. So I basically just like I'll find somebody in the underground, like I'm making a video about Lefty Gunplay right now. I know who that is. If you listen to a lot of rap music, you know who Lefty is. He was on Kendrick's album.
Uh,
But I know most Channel 5 fans are going to be like, who the hell is this guy? So I get to kind of cherry pick my favorite underground artists to bring to the masses, and it's a privilege.
it's beautiful. See, I can't say I have that much influence, but I have enough influence where like I can pick some of my favorite local artists and it'll get like 50 views, which
That's awesome.
in my mind that's a win right there, you know?
I think that's a huge win, bro. 50 views, that's 50 people. If you had 50 people around you right now, that would feel like a lot.
Exactly, which is like that's what's crazy seeing your subscribers and then just seeing my amount of like my top view video has 15,000 views.
Yeah.
15,000 people is like an arena. Like
It's a
that shit's
massive
wild.
arena. It's like a Lakers championship game, dude.
Oh yeah.
That's why I did this interview, and that's why I'm doing smaller channels, and I'm not doing many mainstream interviews because, I mean, if I was 15 and I got an interview with someone who had like a million plus followers, I'd be stoked. You know what I mean?
Shit's wild. Yeah, and you're kind of like the arena musician. Like the worst thing is whenever you get I for lack of a better word, like cock blocked by these big publicists who just all they care about is like views and subscribers and these weird statistics that no one else cares about.
Yeah.
And like it's kind of behind a paywall
Yeah, and
where
and the thing is, artists don't care about that shit either, or creators. It's just the
exactly.
A&Rs and managers and all that.
Yeah, which is always hilarious to me because like sometimes it's worth it to piss off the publicist and go straight to the artist. And the artist
Yeah.
is like the chillest guy ever or chillest gal and he's like, "Okay, just tomorrow let's do it."
Yeah, exactly. And it happens. And that's why I don't have a publicist or anything like that. Or I think I have one to like actually coordinate like
Yeah.
write-ups, professional magazine write-ups. But when it comes to podcasts and video calls, it's all me, bruh.
Hell yeah, I appreciate it. And Tibby is awesome by the way. Thank you,
Tibby's
Tibby.
great. Shout out to my office manager, Tibby, holding it down,
Oh
keeping shit in
yeah. And you've done music stuff in the past though, and I think one of my favorite videos of you doing like a dedicated music video, I'm sure you know, is the Fish Lots like docu, like incredible video, incredibly crazy. What made you decide to do a whole entire video on Fish Lots specifically?
Well, I mean, I know that like fish, I've known my whole life from growing up in Seattle that fish fans have a particular like vibe. Like they kind of are like the Grateful Dead of the modern times, and they have a shakedown street, and they have a whole lot culture. And I had never seen it before, but I'd gone to a couple different Wook events and festivals. Like I went to Gem and Jam in 2019, and somebody was like, "Yo, if you like this, you're definitely gonna like a fish concert." And I was like, "I have to go inside the concert?" They said, "No, bro. You don't even have to go inside. Just chill in the parking lot, and you'll meet the Nitrous Mafia and all these like." They told me they were like every age, every color, everybody goes to the Fish concert, and I went, and they were not lying. And yeah, I mean the Fish music, it's nice like background music. I mean, I don't really get the appeal of jam bands, but that's because I'm so rap coded that I'm like, what is this? I don't know, I don't understand it. But maybe if I were to just unplug from reality and listen to jam bands for like 12 hours at a time, I could probably get into the sacred frequency they describe.
Yeah, come out with dreadlocks and like a tie-dye shirt.
It could happen, bro. I'm only 27.
Oh, the radicalization begins. How
Yeah,
scary.
the fish radicalization of Andrew. I mean, that would have been cool. I'd probably have a more chill life if I wasn't a journalist, but this is the path I chose.
And no, but I am gonna radicalize you. And I'm sorry to
Okay.
push my beliefs, but there's a like I hate to call it a jam band, but just a band that jams that and I'm sure you definitely heard of him. They're King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard.
Oh
And
yeah.
yeah, I got an interview with their bassist at their Atlanta show. And that would be interesting. That it's like
Yeah.
Fish, but with like tech bros, like more tech bro-y than Fish, and more Australians, which
Yeah,
Australians are the best
Australians,
people.
they are great. They're very nice. Every time I meet Australians, it's the best. I met some Australians in Aspen recently. I hung out with them for like a day straight. Shout out to the Australians.
Exactly. All the Australian bands I've interviewed have like insane names, like the psychedelic porn crumpets, the most incredible music, and are the nicest people, hands
Yeah,
down.
Australians are great, bro. I'm a big Australian proponent.
Exactly. Yeah. Andrew Callaghan for Australians. You heard it here
Hey.
first.
I actually lived there. I did a semester abroad in Melbourne, Australia. So I lived there when I was like 22 for 6 months. It was awesome.
Awesome. Do you think that like shaped up your journalism in any way?
Not particularly, but it shaped up my perception of Australians.
Which is that's better though. I mean,
Yeah.
I hate when people think of Australia as the place with big ass spiders and like kangaroos, which is
Yeah,
kind of
no.
true, but
That
like
is true, but that can also coexist with crazy jam bands. So, it's all fun
exactly,
and games.
exactly. Um, Now back on the Dear Kelly, I
Mhm.
think what was super interesting is finding out like for the first half of the movie that he's like this super nice, family man. He kind of looked like my dad, honestly. And then as you talk to his daughter, you find out that well, he did a lot of marijuana, and
Yeah.
that was kind of a major part of his life that he never told you about, and there was never pictures, like almost an undocumented part of his life.
Yeah.
Do you think like marijuana is definitely held in high praise by the more left-leaning
Yeah.
parties? Do you think it played into his political extremism in any way?
I think that it probably shaped some of the paranoia and those sort of yeah, just conspiratorial inner brain workings after the foreclosure. Because I think that I've had friends develop schizophrenia from weed use in adolescence before. I mean, I grew up smoking a lot of weed. I kind of just stopped naturally when I was 18 or 19 because it was just setting me back from my priorities. But at the same time, I do think that weed is not bad. I mean, I don't want to get you in trouble with your parents, but I mean, I think if you smoked weed, it would probably be okay. Just don't go overboard. He, on the other hand, was smoking weed from what I heard like 5 times a day for most of his life. Weed also got stronger throughout the course of the past 30 years. I know that's like a typical anti-marijuana trope, but it's true. The type of weed they sell at the dispensaries now is like incomparable to the kind of bush weed they were smoking in the 70s and 80s when he started. So, I mean, I think weed probably had a little bit to do with it. However, I personally believe the treatment center that he went to kind of leaned into the substance abuse a little bit more than necessary.
Hmm. And then that's interesting because it seems like you are a proponent for legalized weed. Is that true?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a proponent of drug decriminalization overall, you know.
Interesting. And then like going back to the Sigma Alpha kind of thing, where they're like totally against it. I know you've done videos on that where these people will like almost barbarically yell at the homeless who are just stooped in addiction and instead of helping, kind of just point and laugh.
Yeah, it's
Um,
just weird.
how do we make criminal or drug decriminalization happy for both sides in a sense and kind of appease both parties? Or do you think that's not possible?
It's not possible because the kind of people who are going to yell at the homeless and berate people who are already in a state of just degradation and humiliation, I don't think we should cater any policy to people who think like that. Because at the end of the day, those are just mean-spirited people who they're going to find, even if you were to solve homelessness by 90%, they would seek out the last 10% and be like, you fucking beta, get up and go make a business, start a small business. What I don't even know what they say. But
It's shit like that.
I do think that on the other hand, you got people who infantilize the homeless and make it seem like it's okay to just be strung out on dope all day on the streets, which it's not morally wrong, but it's sad, but you're definitely, I don't know, man. I just think that better harm reduction services, I think the police need to do their job when it comes to crime that isn't drug use, because, if you're using drugs, you're also involved in different kinds of crime usually. You're typically shoplifting, that kind of stuff. Just drugs and crime go together as much as the pro legalization crowd doesn't want to admit it. Drugs do have a correlation with violence, but that's also because it's illegal. I think that if you had San Francisco tried to do this. You have a safe injection area, right? So you have like a 2 acre lot that's surrounded by security officers, whether it be police or whatever. Inside, you have clean needles, you have areas where they have food, you have the full experience, and you have places where they can put the needles in the trash can. But you don't let people do heroin on the streets outside of that safe injection site. So containment and care, I think, is the next step forward. And that doesn't mean just a free for all, but the main concern about homelessness for the people of America who aren't homeless is crime. They say crime, and also they don't want their kids to be like bothered by it. I grew up around a lot of homeless people. It doesn't bother me, but there's this conservative conception that like that will traumatize children, like seeing homeless people. When in reality, that's not really the case. And it's not like homeless people walk around with loaded fentanyl needles and just are sticking little 5-year-olds in the neck with it in their strollers. But that's the narrative they want to push. So yeah, containment and care. That's all we can do, really. What's the other option? I guess if you want to, you would just have to kill all of them. I
Yeah,
mean, that seems to be if you it's you either care for them or you kill them, like an animal.
exactly. And the scary
Yeah.
part is that like with this administration, it really wouldn't be that like crazy if like tomorrow they came out or like, you know what? Say goodbye. They're
Well, that's
gone.
kind of the logic they seem to be advocating for. You know what I mean? I
Exactly.
see people say like, why would you give clean needles to people? This is natural selection. It's like, okay, why don't you go speed up natural selection, Mr. Tough Guy? You know,
Yeah.
because the fact is most of these homeless people have families that they have tried to get in touch with and lost touch with over the course of the past few years. Most of them have people who care about them and love them. So it's about reconnecting them with those people, but also accepting that some people aren't ready to change. Some people don't want to change. Some people will never change. But compassion, patience, care, and containment is the play.
Exactly. I 100% agree. And especially like living in Atlanta, which is deemed a lot of times as, you know, a city riddled with homeless people. In reality, it's scarily too. It's a lot of veterans that just could not get into housing and could not reconnect with family or for whatever reason, and then you fall into crime and drug use,
Yeah.
and it's a slippery, slippery slope. And with the government that Georgia has right now, there is like nothing being done at
Yeah, I
all.
mean, if you look at downtown, like if you go to where the 5 Points MARTA station is, right by the Greyhound station,
It's
as
bad.
soon as the businessmen go home to wherever they live, whether it be Buckhead or Gwinnett or somewhere, that whole area just devolves into like complete chaos at nighttime. You know what I mean? And so it's like they look at it as that's the responsibility of the homeless people to like get their shit together. It's like, are you guys just like it doesn't there's countries where there's not that problem. I don't know. There's this idea in America that that's always going to be the case and that every inner city is inherently going to have these like, you know, Amsterdam from the Wire style like crazy open air drug zones. When that's not plenty of other countries have solved this problem.
Exactly. But it's also because they don't, this is like a conspiracy theory I love. They don't want the US to change. It's kind of like in the sweet spot for rich people to get richer and for the middle class to shrink and for the poor to get poorer, for homeless people to never get any help.
Yeah.
And then also like villainizing local underground scenes. This is something super interesting. I've been trying to make almost a documentary, like one of yours, about the local underground, I mean like under Atlanta scene
Oh,
of
okay.
Screamo because there are all these venues and abandoned malls under like literally under the Capitol where they have
Holy
like these
shit.
50-person shows that are insane. I went to one on Saturday and it's like $10 to get in. You I still have like my X. They put an X on your hand and there's like homeless people just trooping around and it's like that also gets villainized. People are trying to get rid of that and as they raise prices on those and like we're it's almost
Yeah.
like it's like a perfect city. It's like a utopia in a sense because no
Yeah.
one's messing with anyone. The homeless people are like being fed and people give them money and there's like compassion and kindness. And then every single month one of these venues close
Yeah,
and
you should make a documentary about that, bro. That sounds sick as hell.
I'm
Underground
trying.
Atlanta screamo shows. Just walk up in there with you know what you should get is one of those point and shoot cameras. Like if you go to Best Buy, they have these video cameras that are like really small that are like $250 that have a 50x zoom that kind of have like a vintage old skateboard video feel to them, but it's
Yeah,
still
yeah.
digital, so you don't have to rely on tapes. That's what I would do, bro. That would be sick.
But yeah, I mean, the scariest part too, or not even scariest, the craziest part is like I got an IB school, Campbell, which is in Smyrna,
Mhm.
and I just thought the school was full of like nerds and kind of like the really rich people because
Yeah.
that's a lot of what it is. And then you meet like this one dude, like the guy with the Matrix, the dude with the pills, and then it goes into well, there's this dude named Nathan and this dude named Grant and this dude named Vinny, and
Yeah.
then they take you to a show one day and like it's kind of like the fish thing where like
Yeah, bro.
you come out with
Except the
dreads.
underground scene is a lot cooler than Fish.
Oh yeah, and the coolest part, like honestly, is that it's super accepting. Like you see
Yeah.
people of all colors and of LGBTQIA, and of people who may be on the spectrum and who have whatever. You're accepted. You will get pushed and bruised either way. It's
Yeah.
beautiful.
Yeah, you got to make that documentary. I would watch the hell out of that thing, man.
Hell yeah. Well, you've given me the motivation I need to like make that shit happen, dude.
Fuck yeah, bro.
And the last question I kind of have like lined up is, in your opinion, this is like for me and other journalists, what makes peak journalism? Journalism that people can get into, that people can attain, that people can understand, and then come out with a uh, more bright, what am I trying to say? Wide
Broad stroke
worldview.
understanding.
Yeah.
The a really good main character that is relatable. The best journalistic pieces are character profiles that revolve around a singular personality, but the story or the historical factors at play are so relatable that it becomes a time capsule for other things that go beyond the scope of the main character. Like if you think about it, there's a really good documentary called The Act of Killing, and it revolves around this guy named Omar Bongo who perpetrated this crazy genocide in Indonesia in the 90s. But he got off scot-free because his regime won. So the documentary is about him as a person and almost in an empathetic light of him dealing with the guilt of having perpetrated that while simultaneously being championed as a hero to his community, you know? And it's about him, but it tells you about the time period and it will always be valuable because of that. So if there's any character profile that can indicate society at large while zooming in on the person's life, that makes a great documentary. Tiger King is one of those. When you
Yeah,
think of
the
Tiger
Tiger King is
King, what do you
great.
think about? Florida, early DVDs. You know what I mean? Like the 2000s, that aesthetic, like all those things. People are going to watch that in 100 years and just think, damn, what, Florida, the United States, and around the turn of the century. What the hell? You know?
Yeah, it's like the cave drawings almost.
Yeah, it is. And that's time really tells you what's valuable. And that's what sucks about breaking news coverage is that people don't care about it in a month. It's kind of why I want to go back more toward making long form documentaries because if I make a video about the inauguration, it might get more views than a documentary like Dear Kelly, but it's still not going to be cared about when the next thing happens.
Okay, so thank you.
Yeah,
And
bro.
that's kind of it, which is crazy, you know.
Great job.
I really appreciate you coming on the show and, expressing your beliefs. Next time you come to Atlanta, which I guess will be 26 if things go out as planned,
Right.
I'm taking you to a Scram show, okay?
I'm down, bro. Stay
So,
in touch. You got my email, right?
oh yeah, I'm gonna take. There's a venue called Mom Said It's Fine,
Okay.
and this shit is crazy. It is a art gallery,
Sick.
with art everywhere and like new gen art of all like people.
Yeah.
And then right next to it is a place where people get terrorized. So you're gonna
Okay.
love it. Uh, remember, and I will definitely hit you up. Again,
Hey,
thank you
man.
so much for watching. Thank you so
Yeah,
much for
brother.
talking with me, and have a good day, dude.
Yeah, man. Appreciate you. Let's talk soon.
Yes, sir.